Hello and welcome to the Oxygen Addict Triathlon Podcast. We're brought to you every week by our sponsors, tgstore.co.uk.
The home of premium sportswear, including Gore bike wear, Gore running wear, and Aquasphere wetsuits. You can get 10% off with the code OxygenAddict10.
We're also brought to you by PrecisionHydration.com,
who are leaders in triathlete sweat testing and hydration with multi-strength electrolytes that match how you sweat. There's a 15% off the product with the code OxygenAddict15.
Cool, and team.oxygenaddict.com,
who offer triathlon training plans and coaching guidance from Coach Rob Wilby and supportive teammates in a private Facebook group.
I like catching you out with that every week, Hells.
Thanks. Yep.
Oh, welcome to the show, everybody. I hope you've had a great week. Hells, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Rob. I think I'm on this planet. It's another Manic Monday. It's good, yeah.
Good. You've been out and got some miles in this morning already, have you?
I did a little gentle swim. Today's a rest day. So I did a rest day swim.
Recovery day. Not rest day. We don't do resting, we do recovering.
I did a recovery swim and a few little physio exercises in the gym, and then, yeah. But I had I didn't really have a good weekend. I was working. But I did have a beautiful, sunny run on Saturday after work, and it was magical.
Nice.
It was
nice.
Clear blue skies. Now, I must admit, the options are sort of limited for running near where I work, but psychologically I was like, I'm just going to do it straight after work because then it's done and then I don't have to think about it, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, there's like a 5-minute stretch where you can run by water.
Okay.
It's probably a little bit more, but like that 5 minutes is pure golden. So I was like running up and down this stretch. I didn't do that for an hour and a half.
Did you go backwards and forwards?
I did go backwards and forwards a couple of times because I was like, I just like the water.
It's not. Yeah, I can imagine at the right time of day. Actually, that'd be pretty beautiful around there.
Yeah. It's the rest of it, which is like an industrial estate, which isn't quite as inspiring. So then I'm like, yes, it's the water stretch. I'm going to
have to come visit you at work. I've always thought that the buildings there look amazing. I'm going to have to come and have lunch with you. You sneak me into the building. Yeah, that'd be great.
You should. You can, come and have a look around. But I was going to do 2 laps, basically, of which is pretty much an industrial estate, isn't it? So I thought, right, I was getting to the end of lap 1 at about, 40-something minutes. And I thought, I don't want to do that. I want to run by the water. So I turned back round at 40 minutes. I thought, I'm just going to go the other way. It'll keep it exciting. It's the mind games, Rob, I tell you.
Good for you. Oh, it was nice though, wasn't it? Nice to get out in the sunshine for a bit.
Yeah, it's great. And then I just had the most shocking ride home on Sunday. It was hilarious.
You just goosed.
It's only 20 miles. I was like, after about 5, I was like, oh man, I can't even turn the pedals.
It's funny, isn't it, how I have a day like that. I went out and I did 2 hours on the bike on Saturday morning in the sunshine, and after about an hour and a half I was like, how did I ever do this for 8.5 hours during the summer?
Yes.
I'd have thumbed a lift back if I could have done. I was absolutely goosed. I felt like I was pedaling squares, and I just about was like, come on, you can definitely get home without having to stop to buy some food.
That was totally
I've been
it.
riding for 90 minutes.
Yeah, honestly, that was exactly it. I think like nearly 3/4 of the way through, like the last little bit, I was like, just get the blooming nut fruit thing bar out of your pocket. And I'm like, no, don't do it. You'll eat when you get home. You don't need it. You'll be fine. You can do 3 miles. Oh yeah, it was fun. Anyway, there you go. That was my wonderful weekend.
I love it. Oh man, I went out and did a 2-hour run yesterday with the guys from the club. Went out on the Sunday long run.
Get in. Nice.
Yeah.
It's good, isn't it?
It was great actually, yeah. Went on a magical mystery tour around the back lanes of Warrington. It was really good. Loads of places I'd never been to before. Managed to hang on for Grim Life for 2 hours. Again, the last 15 minutes got a little bit ugly, I've got to say. After about an hour and a half, I was going, this is good. I feel I'm in all right shape. No, I'm not. No. I said to Rushy, I reckon I could do about another hour. I feel pretty good. And he was like, yeah, me too. And about an hour 40, we looked at each other and we were like, everyone's getting a lot further ahead of us now, aren't they? Yes.
Oh, that's brilliant.
So we got to the finish line by the skin of our teeth.
Nice.
Good fun. Yeah.
Good work. It is much easier in a group though, isn't it?
Yeah, the first hour and a half totally flew by, actually. It was only when Andy Dine started turning the heat up at the front of the group it started to get a little bit fractured. Thanks for that, Andy. Highly recommend not running with someone who's peaking for a marathon at the time when you're just trying to get back into long runs.
See, I was gentle with you, Rob, in our little runs around Tatton Park.
Yeah, you definitely were.
Wasn't I?
Yeah, these guys weren't at all.
No. Anyway, there we go. The joys of group running.
It's all good fun. Right, should we do some race results?
I think we should, Rob. There's not a whole load going on, is there?
No, it was a quiet weekend, but we did find the Hell of the West triathlon, the half Ironman in Queensland, Australia, which was taken out by Tim Reed. Excuse me, little burp there. Tim Reed and Sarah Crowley took those ones out, and we've got Tim Reed lined up for an interview over the next few weeks, haven't we?
I think
He's on our list of interviews we're going to do this week, so excited to have him on.
Yeah, because he won the 70.3 Worlds, didn't he?
World champion Tim Reed. Yeah, it looks like he's in fire still, doesn't it?
Yeah, he did. Didn't he get last year Ironman Australia, Ironman 70.3 Thailand, 70.3 Asia Pacific? He had a great season.
Yeah. Hey, we'll have to make sure to ask him, whichever one of us does the interview, whether he has like a period of recovery in his year. Because our mindset is obviously it's the middle of winter, but down south it's obviously the middle of summer. And how does he go about hanging on for a World Championships, which is effectively the end of his winter time, isn't it? That'd be interesting to know. Whether he moves to America or something for the winter.
Don't know. We will ask.
We shall find out. So if you've got any questions for Tim Reed that you want to ask, get him fired over onto Twitter. I think it's probably the best way, isn't it? If there's got anything you wanna ask him, we are at OA Try Podcast on Twitter. Is that right now?
Yes, I think that is right, Rob. Yep.
At OA Try Podcast. I'm trying to keep track, Hells. I've actually got it on a post-it on the wall in front of me. So yeah, fire some questions over for him. That'd be good to get some questions at him. So he took that one out in, let's see, what are the results here?
He did 3:38, Rob, didn't he? But it's a 2k swim, 80k bike, and a 20k run. So distances are slightly different.
Yeah. 02 we used to call that back in the day, Helen.
Yes.
Back when you were still a young slip of a lass.
Back when I didn't know what a triathlon was.
Yeah, so good. Still fast going though. 3:38. That's Scorchio. So he takes it out in 3:38. Dan Stein in 3:47 and Luke McKenzie in 3:48. So that's like a 9-minute margin of victory, isn't it?
Yeah, it's comfortable, isn't it?
That's a domination by anybody's standards.
Yeah, I think so. Over on the women's side, Sarah Crowley won in 3:58. Again, a comfortable win because she finished ahead of Emma Billum of Switzerland, who was 4:05, and then Katie Gibb of Australia again was third in 4:10.
Coolio. All right, so that's pretty much. I couldn't find any other results from this weekend, could you?
No, there wasn't. No, there wasn't a whole load, but there's quite a bit of news which we'll come on to in a little bit.
Yeah, quite a bit of news. Now, I should say that our results this week were brought to us by our new sponsor and the fantastic sponsor of tgstore.co.uk. And we've got some good news for one lucky listener because we have drawn the January competition winner. Now, if you remember, the competition was to win £100 a voucher to put towards a new either running jacket or cycling jacket. And the winner was... You want to do a drum roll, Helen? Can you do a drum roll?
I don't know if I can do a drum roll.
Very good. Love it. Winner was Gareth Palmer. Gareth, congratulations. You've won the voucher for the new cycling or running jacket of your choice. So you can get yourself over and email the guys sales@tgstore.co.uk and they will sort you out with the jacket of your choice. So, or the £100 towards the jacket of your choice anyway. So pretty exciting stuff there.
It's just
good
such
for them. I had the
great competition, Rob.
Well, there's going to be another one drawn as well at the end of hang on, that was January's competition, wasn't it? Where are we? Yeah, that was January's competition. So there's going to be another one drawn at the end of February as well. So all you've got to do, if you want to be in it, is I don't think we're allowed to enter, Helen. I nearly entered my email address the other day. I think, oh, they look nice, actually. tgstore.co.uk/Oxygen Addict. Enter your email address and you go into the prize draw for the end of the month. So I think even if you've already done it for last month, do it again for this month and get into the draw. It was cold enough, Helen, for me to put on my Gore Windstopper jacket this weekend. It only gets an outing when it's really cold. It was like 2 degrees when I went out. And when you go out the door with the bike and you think, there's going to be patches of ices around every corner here today.
Yeah, it fills me with fear.
Scared.
Honestly,
yeah,
absolutely
so I was
fills me with fear.
Yeah, so I was stuck to the main road, but had the Windstopper jacket on. And do you know what? Even at 2 degrees, I had just that jacket and a little thin base layer underneath, and I was more than toasty in it. Yeah, it's just the best piece of kit I've ever had. So yeah, if you want something to keep you warm during the winter, you can certainly do a lot worse than checking them out. So tgstore.co.uk.
Awesome. Rob, I must admit, on Saturday when I did my run after work, it was pretty cold, and I went out in just a t-shirt with a really, really light Windstopper jacket on. Honestly, jacket had come off after about 15 minutes. I was boiling.
They're amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, it was really warm.
The magic hot jacket. You should get some Windstopper gloves for your hands. They've got to solve the problem.
Yeah, I know. I was wearing my bright yellow ones just so I could be spotted around the pavements, of the industrial estate.
You've got to stay warm before you stay seen.
High vis.
Bright yellow high vis Windstopper ones, do they?
I'll have a look.
Get over there, tgstore.co.uk, and check out the magic that is Windstopper fabric in winter time. Right, shall we head on over to Coach's Couch?
I think we should. And before we do that, Rob, just a little shout out here, because our interview of the week this week is amazing, and we'll hear it in a little bit. And it's with a guy called Ollie Stoten, who is part of the Try Training Harder team, and it's awesome. Ollie has just got back to the UK after trekking over 1,100 miles across Antarctica. It's cool.
It certainly is, and we shall have that after we've done Coach's Catch. I was listening to that this morning, actually, as I was doing my prep, and it's one of those, sorry, how cold did you... when you're doing something and you go, did I mishear that then? Yeah. Did he just say minus 57 degrees? I'm not sure if that's the actual number, but...
He did.
Is that what it actually was? And
yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna have to check that. That sounds pretty cold to me.
Mental, isn't it? I don't think a Gore jacket, the one that you had for your
on its own.
Yeah, I don't think it would quite do the trick. No. So anyway, listen out for that. It's a nice little interview with Ollie, who I caught up with when he was in Chile. Anyway, our question this week comes from Davey, who got in touch with us, and he says, "How do I improve my 10k duathlon time?"
All right, Davey. So I'm assuming, I'm going to have to make some assumptions with this one. I'm assuming that you're racing standard distance duathlon and you're doing 10k, 40k, 5k. And so it's a bit of a tough one, this. I was thinking about this, Hells, and I think the bigger picture is it's how do I improve my running for duathlon, isn't it? As much as it is how do I improve my 10k duathlon time? Because I think if you improve your running in general and you improve your running fitness in general, you're going to be fitter not just for the 10k but also for the 5k at the end. So anyway, here's what my thoughts were coming into it. First up, I'm always banging on about periodization of your year and looking at having a specific block for doing a specific thing. And I think in Davies' question, this applies threefold, really, because you're going to have to specifically break up your year into chunks to train well for duathlon, to have a period of time where you're concentrating on training the bike, a period of time where you're concentrating on training the run, and then a period of time where you're looking at putting all those together so you can have an effective race altogether. And I think the first thing to mention about it is, I think the most important thing about your 10k run and a duathlon is it's only the first element of 3 in a race. So you often see a lot of the field going out completely nutso in the first 10k, don't you?
Yes.
So It's renowned for it, even more so than a 10k road race. People go out completely bananas fast. And so the first thing is to make sure that when you're at race day, you're racing your 10k at a pace that's correct pace relative to how you can have your best overall duathlon race rather than how you can have your best overall 10k time. And I think a real good rule of thumb for this, although not many people listen to my advice about it, is you're running for 15k. So you're unlikely to be able to have an effective duathlon if you run at any point faster than the fastest you could run for 15k flat out run. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and you know what? I don't think you told me that advice before I did my first duathlon, Rob.
I definitely have done. Maybe you didn't listen. So let's put some numbers on this. If you are racing a 10k, like I'll pick me, right? If I'm racing a 10k and I'm in like 36-minute shape, that's about 5 minute 40 a mile. And in that same sort of shape, I could run 15k probably about 5:55 a mile. So there's going to be about 15 seconds a mile difference between what I can do at 10k and what I can do at 10 miles or 15k. That 15 seconds a mile doesn't sound like much when we're talking about it, but it's a significant amount slower. Like if you were, if you're running on the track, that's going to be 4 seconds per 400 slower, which is probably, I don't know what, 30 meters per lap, isn't it? And if you imagine yourself doing a track session, you're a long way behind that version of you that could run 10k in 36 flat. So you have to give yourself that mental ability to go, right, I have to hold myself back here over this first 10k. I have to know how fast I'm capable of running 15k for and shoot for that as my 10k time. So I guess a lot of my advice here is not really around improving your 10k time. It's around improving your duathlon time. And a lot of that's going to come by virtue of better pacing. And I know a lot of athletes go around in circles and go, but that can't be right. I'm going to be running really slowly in the 10k. And I'm sure that, like as if by magic, I'm sure that I can run a 10k and a 5k faster than I could run 15k. What, because they're separated by a flat out 40k on the bike? No, you couldn't. So like the 15k time is genuinely going to be your best case scenario. And you're probably not going to be able to hold that time on the 5k run anyway, even if you do that on the 10k run. But at least you're setting yourself up to be fast when everybody else is slow if you do it that way. So that being said, that's a race strategy thing. I think the way to go about it is in training, you're going to have a block of training where you're working on your bike. And during that time, you're not trying to improve your run. You're just going to be doing your steady runs 3 times a week. And maybe in one of those runs, you're going to do some fast strides for 50 to 80 meters and keep your leg turnover going. But you're absolutely not going to be throwing in threshold runs and tempo runs and stuff at the same time. And once you've done a block of, let's say, 8 weeks of that on the bike, can swap over to do a block of work on the run. And I usually say, like, make it shorter than the bike, so 4 to 6 weeks. And I think the key here is to improve that 10k duathlon time. You don't want to be training like you're training for 10k. You want to be training like you're training for 15k. So your tempo run's going to be at 15k pace, and your pure speed work in inverted commas is going to be not much faster than threshold pace. So you're not going to be absolutely hammering yourself, certainly not very often. I might throw in maybe 1 or 2 sessions over a 6-week block where you're running faster than threshold pace. But you don't need to run that kind of 5k pace, interval pace very often in order to have the optimum build for your duathlon. Before I keep on talking for the next 20 minutes, I'll probably stop.
Honestly, that is absolutely sound advice, Rob. And I haven't done that many duathlons. Obviously, I did 2 last year, didn't I? Yeah. And I remember the first one was Storm the Castle, and I just remember everybody's advice was don't go off too fast, and so I felt like I ran that first I can't even remember what the distances were, to be honest, but let's say it was 10k. I felt
like 10:45, wasn't it? It was pretty much a standard distance, or maybe a little bit shorter, but because it was uphill and stuff, it was relatively the same in time terms, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I remember thinking, getting back to T1, thinking, I don't know if that was like too comfortable. Like I was chatting to a guy on the way back in saying, I think we nailed that pace-wise. I think that was great. So yeah, and then I obviously did still have a little bit of energy to go for the second run. But It is such a difficult one because you see everyone like storming off and you're
Totally.
thinking, oh my
Yeah.
god, oh my god, they're going to get loads of distance on me. Ah.
Definitely in a duathlon, you're going to be feeling like I've probably gone off a bit slow here if you've paced it right, for sure. I think, with the exception of the one or two guys at the very front of the field, who are going to be able to just absolutely nail it for sections, but you'll even find that they're backing it off for sections as well. They're not always absolutely hammering it, just because you think the physiology of it. You're exercising in an Olympic duathlon. Let's say it takes 2 hours for the sake of argument, right? You're exercising for 2 hours, so you can't run and ride at threshold for 2 hours. You just can't do it, because threshold is by definition as hard as you can go for 1 hour. So by the time you put that chunk in the bike in there as well, you have to back it off a little bit to have any kind of chance at all of having your best overall race results. And this comes from a man who spent a lot of time pacing these things wrong in my younger years.
Well,
you have a lot of time in an Olympic duathlon to rue bad pacing at the second half of the bike, don't you?
Yes. Davey, get in touch with us again and let us know how it's going, how it goes, etc.
Yeah, we must be getting close to duathlon season now, mustn't we? 4 more weeks or so, it's going to start kicking off.
I think so.
The UK at least.
Yep, definitely. Rob, should we move on to some news, or should we do the interview?
Let's do the interview and then we'll do news afterwards. Let's get Ollie up, because he's got a super story. Yeah, absolutely. Arctic explorer. We're branching out a little bit away from pure triathletes, aren't we, Hells?
Well, yeah. I mean, we
with good reason as well. With good reason, because he's bloody inspirational.
That's it. We have always said we really like inspiring stories, and there are links with triathlon, which you'll hear about in a second. So here it is. If the audio quality's not the best, please excuse it, but Ollie was in Chile and I was in the UK.
It's pretty good, actually. I had a listen back earlier. It's come out pretty well, mate. You did a good job.
Comes out all right.
It comes out all right, yeah.
Fab. Well, here we go. Here is the interview with Ollie Stoten. Ollie Stoten, hello, and welcome to the Oxygen Addict Triathlon podcast.
Hi, Helen. I'm very well, thanks. It's very kind of you to have me on here.
Well, it's great to get you on, Ollie, because there is a bit of a triathlon link here. We have had ultra runners on the past.
Oh, that's good to hear. Thank you. Yeah, I seem to surround myself with triathletes, and I'm friends with mainly triathletes. But unfortunately, I'm not talented enough to be a triathlete. But yeah, I'll fit into the runner category for now, if that's all right.
Yeah, that's fine. I think you can also fit into a very unique category as well, Ollie, because just tell us what you have just completed and how many other people on this planet have done that.
So I've just finished skiing across the Antarctic landmass, so skiing across Antarctica. So that's from one side of the continent to the other. And we did it unassisted, so it means you don't use any vehicle support, you don't use any wind support, no dogs. And before we started, 6 people have managed to do this in the last 100 or so years of polar exploration and adventure. So now 5 of us just completed it as a team. So the total's now 11, which is it's a small enough number. So 12 people have walked on the moon, and about 6,000 people have been up Everest. So we're quite pleased to have managed to get across in one piece.
And how far have you skied, and in how many days did it take?
We've skied about 1,150 miles. I don't know the exact number. We were working in nautical miles while we were down there, just because it's easier with longitude and latitude. And I've not totted it up exactly yet, but it's about that 1,150 miles. And we did it in 67 days, and that's including stopping at the South Pole for a couple of days to eat our body weight in food and recover and gather the energy to take the second leg on. So we got to the pole in just under 40 days, got there in 39 days, and then across the whole continent in 67 and picked up on the 68th day.
That is insane. And was that quicker than you had planned, or was it about on track?
It's much quicker than we planned. So the maximum amount of time that we had and what we planned for was 80 days, and we had 80 days worth of food that we could take, and then an extra 5 days rations for if anything went particularly wrong. But then we were delayed being flown into Antarctica just because the weather was pretty rough for quite a while. So we were delayed by about 10 or 11 days at the start point. So we knew that we were going to be quite up against it. We suddenly had about 70 days as opposed to the 80 days that we imagined that we'd have. And then on the first leg, we knew that we were going quite well because on average it takes about 53 days to get to the pole. And when we got them in 39 days, it bought us a lot of time for the second leg, which was much more dangerous, much more difficult. So it was nice to have a bit of a buffer so that we didn't have to rush, and we weren't under huge amounts of pressure before Antarctica started to become a lot more dangerous and winter started to set in and all of the planes left. So that was we were a bit ahead of schedule.
It's amazing. And Ollie, what sort of how many calories were you eating each day? How much weight have you lost?
So I planned the nutrition for everyone in the team, and there isn't much data out there about how many calories people burn doing long distance polar journeys. There's very little data, and really the last decent data is from when Mike Stroud and Ran Fiennes did an expedition, and that was 20 years ago or something. So it was quite hard to gauge, and so I estimated needing about 6,500 calories a day, and that would keep us within reasonable weight loss values, and hopefully people wouldn't get particularly unwell and lose too much weight. And then actually, when we started the journey, we realised that people were going to have an appetite for and burn huge variations in. There's a big difference between what the biggest and the smallest person was going to burn. And the biggest people, so one of the guys was 100 kilograms when he started, he had no appetite, or relatively no appetite, and that continued for the whole expedition. He lost 20 kilograms during the expedition, but was only eating about 5,500. And then the smallest guy who went his appetite went up immediately, and he was eating 6,500 to 7,000 calories a day, and then only lost about 3 or 4 kilograms, but had that appetite straight away. And then I sit in the middle. I was eating about 5,500 to 6,000 calories, and I've only lost about 8 kilograms, 7 or 8 kilograms, which is really annoying because I put a lot of weight on before going, thinking, well, I might lose huge amounts of weight and all this sort of stuff. And now that I've finished, I'm actually heavier than I usually am in the off season. So I need to lose loads of weight to get running again. And I never thought I'd be sitting here having just spent months crossing Antarctica and finish and need to go on a diet when I go home. But it's better to have it this way than to have had catastrophic weight loss, in a really austere environment. So at least I can do it in a controlled manner now. I've not lost much, only about 7 or 8 kilograms.
What was the coldest that the temperatures got down to for you?
It was about minus 57 one day. Most days were, an average day would be minus 30s, minus 30, minus 40. This is including wind chill. Antarctica is a pretty windy place. I think it's the windiest continent on Earth, someone said. And wind chill makes a huge difference. So we just did all temperatures with wind chill because that's what really matters, what the temperature feels like as opposed to still air temperature. And most days are in the minus 30s. A lot of days on the second leg were in the minus 40s and getting into the minus 50s. And then, it got down to about minus 57 one day.
How do you actually do your business in minus 57, Ollie?
Very quickly. Yes, you do it as fast as possible. Urinating isn't so bad because you can turn your back to the wind, and that's the biggest factor, and much easier for blokes. And having a bow motion is slightly more difficult and can be a little bit emotional. And you just learn to do everything extremely quickly, and that's one of the nicest things about coming back to normal life in a reasonable environment, is that you can take your time slightly more. So I've been enjoying that recently.
I was reading a blog, and that you actually had like zips in your in your clothing. Is that right?
Yes, so we were really fortunate in that Mountain Equipment did some specialist clothing that was tailored for all of us, and we could say exactly what we wanted from the clothing. And one of the things was, we've obviously got the normal sort of fly style zip, but then there was a zip on either side on our salopettes, and it would essentially drop a bum flap so that you could keep your salopettes on and keep all of your clothes on top, but then have a bum flap that would fold down and drop down and give you access to the nether regions to be able to do your business.
Sorry, but in -57, I bet that bum flap was the best thing ever.
Yeah, it was, but you still had to be pretty damn quick with it. And you'd also, with the tents, you'd always try and have a bow movement when the tents were up, and then if you go just downwind of the tent, then it can actually block out a lot of the wind and make things much quicker. But if you were unlucky and had to go whilst on the march, then there was no choice but to be very, very quick.
Wow. Now, Ollie, I will move on from bowel movement. What sort of training had you actually done to prepare for this? Because obviously 60 odd 70 days of constant moving, lugging your packs, skiing, my God, it's not easy.
So we did a training trip in Norway in last January, this time last year, and that was part of the selection process as well for the team. And in the build up to that, I'd just done a lot of running as usual, but then I'd incorporated more strength training and also changing my diet a bit, so it was less of a carbohydrate heavy diet and more of a slightly higher fat diet, just to see what the differences would be. And I also did a lot of tyre dragging leading up to Norway, and then I got out to Norway and started doing all of this pulk hauling and skiing, and realised that dragging a tyre around, as much as it looks great and everyone thinks that you're off to do some intrepid exploring, is actually not that useful for polar expedition type moving, and I just found that it wasn't really useful at all. So then training for the actual expedition, I did a full season of normal running and racing, and then the key differences were that I didn't try to lose any weight, so I just stayed at a normal sort of body weight for me, around 79-80 kilograms, and then I finished the season in July time, late July, and then I had August and September really to start doing proper training for the expedition. I just did an awful lot of strength work and really concentrated on squatting, deadlifts, core stability, and some upper body work, a lot of back work as well, and kept that running base there just by doing some cardio. But it also coincided with starting a new job, so I had much less time to train, and so I did that. I tried to start putting on weight, and this was much easier having less time and having to actually work for a living, and I put on weight pretty quickly, so I suddenly found myself at the start line much bigger than I usually am, and I had that sort of endurance base from a season of ultra running, but also had the strength that I felt I would need, and I think it worked well. I was quite happy, and the only thing I'd change with training in future would be to leave my job earlier and to have done more training. But I was really pleased having the cardio base and then the more strength work on top of that.
And what was the makeup of the group? Because was it six of you in total?
Yes, that's right. So we had the expedition leader, who is a regular army soldier, and then there were 5 of us that are army reservists and from across the army, and all do I was about to say we all do different jobs, three of us are doctors, which is ludicrous, that we all applied and managed to get onto the team for different merits, and then they sort of found out that what we do in our civilian jobs. One guy was a paramedic, and then the other chap does a lot of IT work and web design and things.
Wow. And how did you all get on day to day?
Really well. I think surprisingly well, given the harsh environment and the social isolation. So we had minimal contact with the outside world and essentially didn't see anything for 1,000 miles. So there wasn't much mental stimulation. We literally just had the six of us in this group for most of the expedition, and no one else to talk to and nothing else to do. So I think we were very lucky in that we got on very well, and there weren't any arguments. There was people didn't really get on each other's nerves, or if you did, then things were ironed out really quite quickly. So I think we could have got on much worse. I was actually really happy with how the whole team bonded.
And is there one day which sort of stands out for being the hardest mentally?
There's a vague period. I think my brain's done really well in trying to immediately cover up all of the hard times. I think that's a great bit of human evolution going on there. But there was I know there's a period just after we left the pole that was really difficult, and everyone found it really difficult. So for a variety of reasons, we'd worked hard to get to the pole in good time, and we realised when we were getting close that we could get there for Christmas Day if we pushed hard and did some extra hours and things. So we did, and managed to get there for Christmas Day, which was great. And we had a couple of days that were really, really nice at the pole. And unfortunately, one of the guys had to stop there. He was exhausted, so he left the team there. And then we set off on this second leg, which would be going higher than the pole. Most expeditions, most people that go to Antarctica, if they're doing an expedition, they always finish at the pole, or not always, usually 99% of expeditions do. So then setting off from the pole and leaving it was mentally quite tough. I'd already thought that it would be that way, and imagined the whole time that it was like a 75-mile aid station, a 100-mile race where you feel like you've done something, but you're not quite there yet. And so I didn't mind actually leaving the pole. But then for the week after that, our pulse were really heavy again. We'd just picked up another 30 days of food, so 45 kilograms of weight and fuel. The snow sounds ludicrous, but felt really sticky. It was this thick snow, fresh snowfall. So it just dragged much more, and there was nothing to look at. We were climbing an altitude, so just climbing again is hard. And then the weather really started to get much colder as well. So it had been in the -30s, and that's when we started to get the -40s and lower, that sort of weather. So everything was just building up, and in your mind, it wasn't a case of we've only got a few days left. I was sort of thinking we've got another 400 miles to go. So that whole time period was really tough. And then there were a couple of days, especially on top of that, I'd managed to get frostbite on my face, and it was on my nose and cheeks, which wasn't too bad, wasn't too painful, but it was all on my lips and on the inside of my lips, and it meant eating and drinking was extraordinarily painful. It was I couldn't quite imagine that ulcers could be that painful, and because then I couldn't really eat or drink on top of everything else. I found those few days quite tough, and the burning sensation would keep me up during the night, and it'd be hard to sleep, and I'll be trying to take a lot of pain relief to get to sleep, and so everything just added up on top of each other and made it a tough few days. It was a tough few days.
What did you think of to actually get through those really difficult times and the difficult moments?
I thought of home a lot, and getting back, and some of the fun places I'd like to go with my partner and activities. I thought about running a lot and wanting to be good at sort of closing towards the end of a race, and imagining that same feeling where you know that you're tired and exhausted and everything hurts, but you still need to push, and that you can do it. And I've always had a bit of a technique where, and practiced a technique where I go to my happy place, and that's a particular place where you imagine going, and you see it in your mind's eye, and you smell the smells that are there, and bend down and touch the ground and feel the soil in your hands and things. And I've used that over the last five years or so, and I've always had the same place where I've gone back to if things have got really tough, or a type of meditation really. And I did that an awful lot. I used that an awful lot during the expedition, and especially during those hard days. And I also kept on using sort of positive self-talk and saying you can do this, you are in physically good enough condition to do this and to carry on. So I always believed in myself that I would be able to do it and finish. Trying to think of anything else that sort of stands out. There was also a big part of it was keeping the goal in mind and thinking to myself, well, if only 6 people have done it, it's not going to be easy, but it is clearly doable, and massively just thinking about that end goal and thinking about crossing the finish line overall, but then saying, well, just take this one day at a time, and if you can get through each day and if you can get through each hour, then it's all going to add up, and before you know it, you're going to be crossing that finish line, and it's going to be an amazing feeling.
That is awesome. What were those final couple of hours like?
They were great. There wasn't a huge feeling of ecstasy. I would say more than being overwhelmed with emotion or anything. I felt quite flat, and I think that's because of, instead of working hard for a few hours or something, it had been this long 67 days of chipping away at it. So I kind of perfectly believed that it was happening, because I felt I'd worked so hard for it for such a long time and had been doing it for such a long time that I could believe it. So it wasn't like I was in awe or anything. I think there was a feeling of slight relief that we had made it, and that we'd made it in good shape, and that there'd been no significant ailments or illnesses, or everyone was fine. So there was a slight relief from that, and there was just a sort of background happiness. But I think I felt more flat than people would imagine, and that feeling's really actually continued since finishing. And I'm hoping with time from the expedition and away from the expedition that will change, and it will become more of a huge happiness whenever I think about it. But yeah, there wasn't huge elation really.
Did you get like a plane? Did a plane pick you up to sort of take you away? And then the first time you saw greenery rather than ice, was it like, way?
Yes, it was. Yeah, so we had a small plane flew out to the ice shelf that we'd finished on. We went and found a suitable area and marked out a runway, and that plane flew in, and that was one of the greatest feelings, was hearing and seeing this plane coming over the mountains to pick us up. And that was, we hadn't seen much civilization for a very long time, so seeing that plane was incredible. And so it was a small plane, and it then flew us back, and it had to refuel en route back. It was about a 6-hour flight just to get back to the other part of the continent, where there's a bit of a base. It's a bit like the Gatwick Airport of Antarctica. And then we stayed there for a few days, and that was waiting for a weather window and for a much bigger plane to come in, a big cargo plane that is chartered from Russia, and it spends the season down flying in and out of Antarctica. And so that then flew in a few days later into Antarctica and landed on this huge blue ice runway, and we got packaged into the back, sitting on these sort of troop seats along the side with all the cargo in the middle of the plane. It's not quite British Airways or similar. And then that flew back out of Antarctica. So this was sort of 4 or 5 days after we finished the actual expedition. We then flew out of Antarctica and landed in Chile, and then we were picked up from Chile and taken back to the hotel and things. And being picked up and being driven back was amazing, because it was the first time that we were outside and it was warm. And
Yeah, because it's summer, isn't it, in Chile?
It is, yes. And it's not that warm down here in Punta Arenas, but I really noticed the moist smell of the air, and it's something that doesn't occur to you day to day, but I've just been breathing Antarctic air for 2.5, 3 months, which is very, very dry and just smells different. And so then when you get that moisture smell in the air that you sometimes get on a fresh morning in the UK when it's been raining or something, when you've got the dew on the ground, that was the first thing that I noticed. And then I started seeing some bits of, I saw brown, I saw soil. I'd never been so excited to see brown, and then some greenery and some trees. It was beautiful. I loved it. So yeah, that was pretty special, and that's when it starts hitting home a little bit more. I think, a little bit more, and getting back to a hotel and then going out for some food that wasn't freeze dried and things like that. That was pretty special.
Love it. And Ollie, throughout this whole thing, you were raising money, weren't you? Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? And are you still raising money if people want to put a bit of money your way?
Yes, we were. We were raising money for the ABF, the Soldiers Charity, which is a charity that I feel it often is in the shadows slightly more compared to charities like, you hear a lot about Help for Heroes and similar, but ABF's done a huge amount of good work day to day with soldiers and trying to help soldiers out when they are in periods of need. And during the whole expedition, the expedition was for the British Army, but we were trying to raise awareness of ABF, the Soldiers Charity, during the expedition. And yes, we are still raising money for the charity. You can go through either the Spear 17 website or on Just Giving, and we're going to continue doing that over the next couple of months as well in this post-expedition period, where a lot more people find out about the expedition, and we've got a couple of dinner nights coming up and things where we're going to auction off a lot of the kit and do similar things like that. So we'll still be raising money and awareness quite critically for the charity.
So it's spear17.org. So Ollie, final question, what's your first race then back?
I've been thinking and dreaming of this for the last few months. I've not actually booked anything. I was a very good boy before going, and I thought I'd got no idea what state I'm going to come back with and what injuries I'm going to have. So to not put pressure on rehab and recovering, I didn't actually book anything at all. The first race we did do, though, was when we got flown back to the airstrip in Antarctica. There was a bunch of people there, a bunch of marathon runners doing the 7 marathons challenge. It's called the World Marathon Challenge, where they run a marathon a day for a week on different continent on Earth each day. And the first place that they were running in was Antarctica. And so we tipped up in this small plane one night late in the evening, and it was much busier than we expected. There's loads of marathon runners around, and managed to catch the race director the next day and was just sort of chatting to him about it, and he kindly agreed to let us join in and run the marathon. So myself and 3 of the other guys decided it would be a great idea, and that it was the perfect recovery from spending 67 days crossing the continent. So we actually joined in with the marathon at 6 o'clock the next morning.
Oh my God! Did you win it, Ollie?
No, nowhere near. I did not put in a good performance at all, which is hardly surprising, seeing as it was the worst training I would have ever done in my life. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the marathon, but no, I didn't come anywhere close to winning it. One of the other guys on the team actually did supremely well. He came 4th.
Seriously?
Yeah, he did, which was just crazy. And I've been telling him for a long time that he should get into running because he's clearly so naturally talented. And he keeps saying, no, I'm not good as you and all this sort of stuff. And he's just gone to prove that he's clearly much better than I am, because he ran a much faster marathon on no training than I did. So I think he should definitely get to running. And I also, what was really strange, and it's awful moving the conversation back to bowel habits, but This was a 10.5 kilometre loop for safety reasons, to try and keep people nice and close. So we did these 4 loops of this 10.5k track, and I had to stop in the toilets every single loop with very loose stools, and I think it was the moving from freeze-dried food back onto normal food, and maybe having a couple of beers and some wine, made things extremely loose. And I was thinking as I was running around, I was always either desperate for the toilet or cursing the fact that I kept on stopping in the toilet. So no, I didn't run well. But thank you for your optimism.
Oh, that sounds like the run leg of an Ironman for many people with GI issues. So you're prepared, Ollie, when you make the step over. Yeah. To the dark side.
I don't think that will happen anytime soon. I'd drown on the swim and I'd never make it around the bike, so I'm not sure that's going to happen anytime soon. But no, it was fun. I actually really enjoyed the marathon. I really enjoyed just running again and not dragging 120 kilograms behind me. It was just the most amazing feeling. But I hope I don't pay for it in injuries now over the next few weeks.
I'm sure you'll be fine. Ollie, it's been an absolute joy to catch up with you. Super, super impressed by that achievement. So you're now one of 11 people, and more people have walked or stood on the moon than have done what you've done. That's kind of cool.
I'm pleased. I'm pleased anyway. But no, thank you so much. It's been brilliant to be able to come on here and talk about it.
Isn't he a good guy, Rob?
I love that bit where he kind of he's obviously an extremely humble guy, like all great explorers are. I think he has that air of calm about him, doesn't he, and unflappability. And he goes, 11 people have done this and 12 have walked on the moon. So, and I was like, that's so cool.
I know, it's just amazing. And I was following it. I was following the whole expedition because, in my mind, getting a bunch of army reserves together who don't really have that experience of, Ollie's job is a doctor. Some of the other guys were doctors as well. One of them, didn't he say, was an IT person? They're not exactly the sort of explorers who are able to go off on expeditions every single year and have been for the past, 20 years of their lives. Yes, the expedition leader was of that caliber, but obviously they need someone with that experience. But the fact that they got through it, and I just can't imagine seeing nothing other than that bleak landscape for 60 odd days. And I mean, you
can't even run around an industrial estate for more than 45 minutes, mate. You're talking of bleak landscapes.
There's even colour with that, and you see the odd person. Exactly, but that's the thing. And so getting my mind around that and my head around just the incredible achievement is insane. And all the stuff about the weight loss, that was wow.
Well, I'm a really big fan of taking your inspiration and your information from wherever you can get it from, from a variety of different sources, whether it's just purebred triathlon and endurance sport or military stuff or anything at all that firstly that inspires you, but also the things that can give you a mental trick that you can then take back to your sport and apply it. And if you think to yourself, you're doing a 5k or a 10k or a triathlon and you're really suffering, it's going to be over soon. What mental tricks do these guys have that allow them to do something for 160 odd days? Like, I couldn't do that. I know that for certain. If the suffering's not over before the sun goes down, I'm in a deep hole. But I just love that idea that other people have got access to solutions to these mental problems, that if we can just learn a little bit of it, it could revolutionize our ability to push ourselves in our sport, right?
Totally. And that was a bit that, Ollie was brilliant talking about it, wasn't he? Just once they had reached the pole, and then because when they set off for this expedition, obviously the intention was to do a whole traverse, but they weren't completely certain if that is what they would do. They were going to have a, let's check everything when we get to the pole. So then it was this case of, right, yep, we're good to go, we're good to carry on. And that was when Ollie was saying it was the hardest bit.
Yeah.
And just his tactics to get through those really tough days. I mean, did you see the photos of like his lips with all the frostbite and stuff? It's
not nice, is it?
It's really not nice. And you think, God, the pain. And then, as he was saying about struggling then to eat, but knowing you've got to eat. And yeah, I was brilliant. Oh. And then the fact that they went and did the bloody marathon at the end of it.
I think we should get all of these photos up on the page this week, because it's just so hardcore, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have got duct tape on my nose. Oh man, what a legend. Yeah. Ollie, I salute you. If I ever meet you, the coffees are on me.
You have to join him on an ultra run, Rob.
Yeah, okay. I'm up for that. I'm up for any kind of ultra run up to and including 2 hours in my present state of fitness.
Fine. Ollie, if you're up for a 2-hour run, you've got company up in the northwest of England.
Yeah, anytime, mate. Up to maybe 2 hours and 15 minutes. Who knows? I'll push myself. God, I feel weak. I'm half a man.
Oh, yeah. Right, Rob, should we crack on?
Yeah, bit of news. Where should we go first? Shall we start with... Let's start with these alleged doping violations, shall we? Lauren Barnett and Beth Girders receive bans for doping violations.
Yep, that's right. So American Lauren Barnett has been suspended for 6 months for the anabolic agent Ostarine, and she basically was able to prove that the substance came from a contaminated supplement, and so she was given a reduced ban, whereas Beth Girders has been suspended for 2 years as a result of a drugs test at the end of Ironman Australia last year. Now, it was the same, the same agent, so it's Ostarine, okay?
Yeah.
And she was basically unable to prove that salt tablets were contaminated. So she sent her salt tablets off. They found that one, I think, batch initially did test positive for Ostarine.
Yeah, they found that there was Ostarine on the packet.
Yeah.
And she'd had, from what I've read, she had those like sample packets from somewhere with three tablets in.
Yeah.
And she sent away multiple packets of these samples that she had, and they found Ostarine on some of the packets but not on others. And so for some reason, whoever adjudicates on this decided that wasn't enough to prove that this is where it had come from. So have you read her? She's got a really great blog about it, actually, and you really feel for her, because it looks like she's really gone through the mill, paying for all this herself to get all the things tested. And at the end of the day, I did a bit of reading about this earlier. I've never heard of Ostarine before. Had you?
No, I hadn't, but a bit like you, I have been doing a bit of reading as well, and I was looking on the US Anti-Doping Agency website, and basically a lot of popular prohibited substances are commonly contained in dietary supplements. So USADA basically is saying that, if you use dietary supplements, you have to be really, really careful with them, because, and this is the reason, essentially a lot of manufacturers, they might misidentify prohibited substances on labels. They might even omit them altogether. So, so then you don't know that you're even consuming them. So you think you might not be.
I think that the thing I didn't realise was, before doing a bit of reading around this, never heard of Ostarine. Oh, okay, it's some kind of anabolic thing. Yeah, that sounds a bit suspicious that it's in you. But it's like you can buy it from the muscle building shop. Yeah, it's there's dozens of like supplements called like Muscle Man or whatever.
Yep.
And it's meant to be a really powerful anabolic, supposedly without the drawbacks of anabolic steroids. But I think because it's produced in the same factories as lots of other substances, and supplement companies produce lots of different supplements, it's likely a bit like, when they say we can't guarantee that this thing doesn't contain traces of nuts because the fudge bar comes off the factory in the same thing as the double decker or whatever. You see what I did there? Mixing metaphors of drugs and chocolate bars from the UK. So it's a real tough one, isn't it? And you've got to say, I'm not going to say that actually. I was going to say something along the lines of,
don't even say it, Rob. If you don't think you should, don't say it. But
well, no. What I was going to say was, it doesn't seem like the kind of thing that an endurance athlete would take.
No.
Because if it's like a big bulk you up, grow muscles type thing. It isn't like, I know there's some steroids that are very effective for endurance athletes, but I don't know. Maybe I don't understand enough about it, but. Yeah, it's a tough one, and
it just makes you question. I think. I just think the whole thing really does make you question everything that you put in your body, basically.
Yeah. So be careful out there, kids. You don't want getting popped at Kona because you've taken something from the health food store. Sad one, I think.
If you haven't read it,
feels to me like an anti-dope has been caught. It feels like, feels like somebody's been extremely unlucky with a contaminated supplement.
Well, I would just say, if you haven't read Beth Giddis's blog, then do have a read through it. We definitely put it up on our Twitter feed, and it does just basically make you think. And for Beth, she says that is the end of her racing career completely, basically. Yeah.
Bless.
So, Rob, in other news, the ITU and Ironman have signed a partnership.
Interesting, no?
Well, should I tell you? So basically, they say that they have signed it to work together, is really what they're saying. But the bit that I found particularly interesting is that the ITU will sanction certain Ironman events as like their world events.
That is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you think they're going to start having like the ITU World Long Distance Championships,
Correct.
which have recently been challenge branded, haven't they?
Correct. That was my thinking.
Because there's a lot of talk, isn't there, about standardized rules, and I think there's a great argument to be made for that. I also think there's a great argument to be made for having one set of world championships. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah. So, I mean, they say that they have agreed to, work together for anti-doping, working towards ITU being recognised as a singular international federation. The ITU sanctioning select Ironman events as international events. They going to work together for a single set of rules. So how some races drafting might be this and something else might be that, and in one race you might be able to wear your number under your wetsuit, and another one you can't. Well, they're hopefully going to standardize those. And the final point is try to work together to develop women in the sport. So I'm all for that bit.
Will they start giving equal numbers of slots for the World Championships then, I wonder?
Hey, that's an interesting point.
Come on, guys, raise your game. Let's step into the new millennium.
two brains are better than one, aren't they?
Yeah.
Rob, there were two quick things. First of all is that the Rio Paralympic silver medalist Alison Patrick has been named in the Great Britain squad for the Para-Track Cycling World Championship, so that's really cool.
Brilliant.
So para-triathlete going to the track cycling para world champs. That's really awesome. And then the other thing I spotted, Rob, this has got me all excited. So Marathon des Sables has launched a half version in Fuerteventura.
Yeah. How cool's that? 3 stages, 120k. Man, they've got some amazing scenery in Fuerte. They've got a huge stretch of white sand dunes, which will be misery for the racers. There's no question. And they've got like that volcanic landscape as well. Oh, it looks brilliant. I went and had a look earlier on, actually.
Did you write your email address in? I did.
Yeah.
It's like, tell me more.
I was hoping to be like a course link on there to show you where it was going to be. Because if it's 120k, it's got to be most of the length of Fuerte, I reckon. I'm just thinking, we did a 180k loop from Pleitas up to Coralejo and back down again.
Yeah.
So, half of that 90k you're probably going to get all the way from Coralejo all the way down to maybe Jandia down in the south even. That'd be
you'd
amazing.
have to, because it's only about...
Let's go around in loops and stuff.
Well, the island's only 100k long, isn't it? And 19 mile and 30k wide, so it's not exactly the longest island out there.
There you go then.
There's my geographical knowledge. Thanks, Google. Rob, talking of stage...
Is it very good? Is it it's not this September, is it? It's the year after.
No, it is. It's September 2017.
Oh, is this September?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, balls, it's going to clash, isn't it?
Uh-oh. Yeah, you hold your horses, you.
I think I'm out.
You can't do it this year because you're going to Wales, and you can't do it the year after because you're going to Kona.
Oh, shut up about that. I will be going to Wales this year, so Fuerteventura might be on hold. But Rob, talking of stage races, the other week I mentioned one in Argentina and Chile. Which is called... Sorry, this has never happened.
Woohoo,
the phone's ringing. It'll stop, but then the answer machine might kick in. Give me... Literally, I'm going to shut the door and then it won't matter. Hold on.
Yeah, no problem. Oh, while she's away, everybody, I think we should make her...
I've shut the phone off.
Oh, hi, Helen. Hi, back again.
Right, so this
Nothing to see here. Nothing to see here.
the race in... Chile and Argentina called El Cruce, which means the cross. So I've just been sent photos from my brother and his friends who have completed it. Oh my god, it looks amazing. So it's 3 days and it's 100k in total, and the organising team put tents out, so you go and camp each night after you've done the run. And he said something like I think he said 13,000 something of climbing. So just a little bit of the 13,000 foot of climbing. Yeah, he said it was just
well done,
amazing.
those guys.
So look it up if you want a mega challenge for 2018. Look up El Cruce, which is CRUCE.
I'm going to go and have a look now when we finish recording.
It just looks incredible.
Right, we're going to wrap up this week's show now. Just before we go, I'm going to give you a little shout out for our charity podcast appeal. If you go to justgiving.com/crowdfunding/podcast, we have got some really cool prizes. If you donate 20 quid to our appeal, you get a ticket to enter. We have got a signed tri-suit from Yvonne van Vlerken. We've got a signed tri-top from Lionel Sanders. We've got a signed tri-suit from Sarah Piampiano. We've got a couple of books from John McAvoy, a £100 voucher from the TG store, a £100 pro sweat test from Precision Hydration. We've got running kit from Hocker, courtesy of Kevin Collington, and also 2 signed Kevin Collington backpacks from the World 70.3 champs and Ironman Cozumel, and more prizes coming in all the time. So if you donate money to our appeal, you get a ticket to enter. We'll be doing our prize draw in mid-March. So please, if you can support us, we'd really, really appreciate it. That'd be super cool. And that's about it for this week, isn't it, Hells?
I think so. Do I have time to tell you something funny I saw, Rob?
Yes, you definitely do. And then I'll tell you something funny as well.
Okay, and then we'll shut up. Right, so you know
it's
how
going to be a long one, isn't it?
No, it's
We've
not.
rabbited.
No. People can leave us a review on iTunes, which is actually really, really helpful and is very, very kind of people. So if you do want to leave us a review, we would love it. And just to get the mind stirring and get you thinking, this is the last one we had, which I've only just come across, and it made me laugh a lot. Okay.
Okay.
So it's from Carvin Marvin, and he says, Quite simply, one of the best podcasts there is. Part triathlon education, part soap opera. The interviews with world champions, amazing age groupers, inspirational coaches and product innovators all sound like old friends catching up over a cup of tea. And we, the listeners, are lucky enough to be invited along. Oh yeah. If Helen is on one of her jet-set missions, be prepared for an ultimate guest host. Rebecca Keat was wonderful, but Joe Skipper leaves me with the quandary of begging to join Team Skipper or seriously asking if you can adopt a triathlete. However, it is to stay in touch with the Rob and Helen saga that I longingly wait for that little mug logo, as was, to appear in my unplayed list. Which crazy event is Rob thinking of entering next? Will the Achilles hold together? Is the mysterious Rich real, or a figment of Rob's imagination? Will Helen really get to Kona? Tune in next week for the next exciting instalment of the Oxygen Addict Triathlon podcast. Go hard, eat cake.
That sets the high watermark for reviews, doesn't it? That's awesome. I don't know who that is, but we should be able to use it as marketing, shouldn't we? I love that.
So that's Carvin
What was
Marvin.
his name?
Carvin
Marvin.
Oh, it made me laugh.
Right, I'm going to tell you a little story as well to finish. This will make you gig and hurls. I went out and played my guitar last week in a little local club. Had a bit of yeah, you didn't know that about me, did you?
Well, I did. I knew you were in a band.
Well, back
times
in the
gone
day.
by. Exactly.
Well, just recently, I figured there's a little club in our local town that does open mic night. So I was out with a mate, and he said, "Go on, get up and do a few songs." And afterwards, the guy said, "Do you want to come down and play on Thursday night? You can." I was like, "Okay, then I can do that." Nervously put together a set list. So anyway, I'm there. I'm nervous as hell. Start playing. It's all going fine. Bar fills up with people of various inebriation, and all of a sudden a guy who's slightly slumped on the bar after a beer too many shouts, "Smoking!" Which I think, great, he thinks I'm fantastic on the guitar. He charges at the stage, and unbeknown to me, what had happened was the bar owner had put little candle tea lights out on the tables to sort of set the scene, you know. As I'm singing my little breathy guitarist type singer-songwriter thing. My guitar case had it's like a soft guitar case, had slumped over in the background over the tea light and set on fire. Yeah, because it's made of cheap nylon, the thing had gone up like a torch. So there's black smoke billowing out into this club. This guy comes steaming over, throws his pint over it and starts stamping on top of it to make the fire go out.
Oh my God.
Yeah, exciting time. So I'm now known as the guy who set the bar on fire.
That is brilliant. Will they have you back?
Yeah, there's not been an invitation forthcoming so far.
Fireman, would you go back?
Surely they won't hold that against me. Just setting the bar on fire is not enough, is it?
No, that's just brilliant. I love this story. Oh my God, were you more nervous? Like, were you the most nervous you have been for quite a while? Or were you back?
No, I've done a few open mics and stuff. So by the time I got to that point, I was like, all right, let's do this. Let's play a proper gig again. So yeah, I was into it. I kind of had to hustle to get a set list together, but yeah, it went all right on the night. But before the first open mic night, I was more nervous than I've been in a long time.
This is just brilliant. Well,
but
Rob,
it's like anything, right? People who turn up to play them, everyone who plays is dead nervous for the first time because you're out of practice or you've never done it before or whatever.
Yeah, like your first triathlon.
Totally. In fact, the parallels are really there because you assume everybody else is really confident and everyone else knows what they're doing, and the reality is that's not been the case with anybody that I've spoken to so far. And it's usually not a triathlon either, is it? Even if people have got expensive kit, they often don't feel like they know what they're doing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that's brilliant to do something a little bit out your comfort zone, and just totally different. It's cool.
Thanks, mate. Yeah.
I'm impressed. And set the place on fire. I mean, why not?
Yeah.
Blokes love fire.
Cheshire's answer to Jimi Hendrix.
Right.
All right. Let's wrap it up. Thanks very much for listening, everyone. You've been listening to the Oxygen Addict Triathlon podcast. I've been Coach Rob Wilby.
I'm Helen Murray.
And thanks for listening. Tune in again next week when we will have an interview with, is it Meredith Kessler next week?
Oh, I think it is. It's either her or Rachel Joyce, isn't it?
It's Meredith Kessler next week, we decided. So yeah, interview with her. So going to be awesome. Great interview. Tune in then. Thanks for listening. Have a great training and racing week, and we will talk to you all again soon. See ya.